Welcome to the Tired of Talking podcast. I am your host, Carmen Rozier, and this is the podcast where we talk about all the things we are tired of talking about that we want to put an action plan to. Come to the place where you can rediscover, recreate, and redesign your life. Let's get into it. Well, hello, wonderful, beautiful, good people. Welcome to another episode of the Tired of Talking podcast. I'm your host, Carmen Rozier. And hey, guys, this is episode 16. If you've been tuning in, I want to thank you in advance. And if this is your first time tuning in, I want to say welcome to this podcast. And again, this podcast, we talk about the things that we're tired of talking about that we want to put an action plan to. Those that don't know me or know anything about me, I help divorced women reveal what they need to heal in order to operate from their best selves from the inside out by rediscovering, recreating, and redesigning their lives. But even more than that, I hope that when you listen to this podcast, you'll find that a lot of the principles and a lot of the things that I have to say apply to many and most often apply to all. Now, today we're going to get into it as it refers to rediscovering yourself as it pertains to getting to your next level, and not even just your next level, operating from the best version of yourself. You know, that's all this thing called life is about. It's just going from the next thing to the next best thing and just growing from one point to the next. And so it's easier to do that when you are self-aware. You know, what brought me to this it's been quite a week. It's actually been quite 2 weeks. And when I say that, I'm saying that we know that life happens, life lives, and it is no respecter of person on how it's going to show up or how it's going to happen. And so in the last 2 weeks, personally, I have been experiencing a lot of things that have allowed me to identify key areas that I want to share with you that you may also be struggling with to help you get to your next best. Now, specifically, when we're talking about that, help you to identify how you are or are not showing up in your life. Do you ever get to a point where you ask yourself, now, why did I do that? Why did I respond this way? Or I could have done better, or I should have said this, or I should have done that. We're constantly critiquing and questioning ourselves. And it's always easier because we do it all the time. If you look on social media, all I see are reaction videos, reactions to other people. We're so easily able to pick apart the flaws or even the good things about other people. We become self-absorbed. We become absorbed in the lives of others. And when we do that, it takes the focus off of ourselves. And when we do that, we're not growing. We're just being opinionated. You know, there's a saying that says that people who are not in the process of developing or growing or succeeding talk about people, but people who are succeeding and growing and moving to the next level don't necessarily have time to discuss or talk about people. So it's all about self and being self-aware. Your self-awareness is what this is about, because it's not you against the world. It is you versus yourself. And let me tell you how, and let me tell you why. On this past week, I had the opportunity, and I call it an opportunity because that's all problems really are. Problems are opportunities to provide a solution and for you to be able to show up the way that you should in the best version of yourself. So in this week, I had the opportunity to reconnect with a lifelong childhood friend in their time of need. And in this particular situation, her mother passed away. Her mother was someone who was very special to me. Now, I got the news about her mother directly after finding out some very detrimental news about a close family member of mine. And when you're hit that way, what it caused me to do and what I tend to do is immediately go into action. And when I say action, it's just because I like to help people. I don't like people to hurt. I don't like people to be sad. And so in my family, how can I show up and encourage, because that is my superpower. My superpower is to encourage and build up other people through the power of my energy and the power of my words. That is just who I am. And anytime that I have the opportunity to do that, I make sure that I rise to the occasion. However, in both of these circumstances, it is causing a direct reflection of myself. And let me just explain how. I realized in these last 2 weeks that I was eating and drinking things that I have not touched for about 3 months as I was doing the first 75 days of the program, 75 Hard, which I've spoken about. And in that hard work that I've done, I have allowed myself to reach a peak physical performance that I have not even attained in my 20s. And I'll be 50 sooner than later. I'm closer to 50 than I am to 40. Knocking stuff over. I'm closer to 50 than I am 40. And so with that being said, as I'm growing and evolving, in the last 2 weeks, I began to unravel and back up the work that I had done by eating and drinking things that were no good for me. And being self-aware had me to pause and question why. And that's when you become aware that self-sabotage is actually an indicator of low self-esteem in certain areas. And because I had been doing so well for so long, and then being, aware of the events that are taking place around me, it made me say that maybe, and this is what therapy teaches me, maybe there's a correlation, there's a direct connection between my actions and the events that occur. So I want to help someone else with that. When you are looking at your own behavior, not the behavior of others, when you're looking at your own behavior, question if you are acting out of your character or out, not even necessarily your character, because if you're trying to change yourself, maybe your old character is not working for you. It doesn't serve you. But if you're working toward the next best version of yourself and the actions that you are displaying don't align with that person, and you are practicing that, then you have to say, well, what is causing, for lack of a better word, a relapse in my behavior? Now, in dealing with the loss of a very close friend's mom, who was also a person who mothered me, it allowed me to realize that I still had work to do. When you are triggered, that is just nothing more than an indication of an area of work that you need to continue in. So for me, I went back to a time and a place and a space that was closed off in my mind, but subconsciously, I was reacting to that. Subconsciously, there were things that were happening. And then when I go back to that time, I can say, okay, comfort food was something that we did. There was a lot of snacking. There was no alcohol when I was growing up, but it's something that I saw. So when I started to pick up my glasses of wine again, the alcohol, and not saying that it's bad for you, but it's bad for me, because with me, it becomes an addictive behavior. Because Friday I had wine, didn't necessarily need it on Saturday or Sunday, but it's a connection of the events. Okay, on Friday, and I'm not doing 75 hard, it's no longer not a part of my meal plan. It's fine. And I'm giving myself these concessions or these passes. But when I add it all up, when I looked at the last 2 weeks, and then I didn't necessarily completely unravel all the hard work that I did, but it didn't help me. That's exactly what I'm saying. When you self-sabotage, you take away the progress that you have been making. And self-sabotage is an indicator of low self-esteem. And then if you are experiencing the esteem, when we're looking at Maslow's hierarchy of needs, esteem is right below the top of the pyramid, which is self-actualization. Self-actualization is nothing more than an awareness of your full potential. So as you are on your journey of rediscovering, hopefully you are finding out what your full potential is. And there are no limits to who you can be, whatever you think, you can think, be, do, and have, whatever you can allow yourself to dream in your mind, because the creator of you has already equipped you with the things that you need to do to get to that. So it's just identifying what your already existing strengths are. So I say all that to say that when you find yourself, if you find yourself in a regression and you're able to, one, identify that that's what's taking place, then you want to have a step or something to do to pull yourself back. Now, I know for me, accountability is key. Accountability is everything. And it's not just having the accountability, it's being transparent and authentic with the accountability that is available to me. It doesn't serve me or the people who I'm accountable to if I'm not reporting what's actually going on. Does that make sense? You can't show up and say, oh, I'm fine, when you're really not fine, because nobody can help you. A closed mouth does not get fed. A person who does not reach out their hand can't have a hand to reach back to help them. If you need help, you got to be able to ask for it. So being accountable and having that accountability is something that has been very crucial to me. So I'm very grateful for my accountability community, which is Breathe University, founded by Dr. Eric Thomas. And not just that community, but that community leads to other relationships that I have developed. So there is an accountability for me with my health and my fitness and my finances. And so I was able to go ahead and put myself back into the program and bring myself back on track. But if it weren't for my accountability community, where would I be? So this is where I say it's not good to be alone. It's good to have community. But in doing that and pulling myself back into that, I had to do the work of also implementing therapy. Now, in my journey of therapy, the most crucial or the most dramatic therapy that I've ever experienced was something called hypnotherapy. And when we think of hypnotherapy or hypnosis, some people, if you've seen the movie Get Out, we go to the sunken place, and some people are resistant to being under the suggestion of another person. But if you are open, and I highly recommend it, there is an exercise that I was introduced to, and it has proven to save my life. See, because what's happening is that self-sabotage and that indication of low self-esteem is not the version of Carmen that you see right now. See, the version that shows up in the subconscious is the trauma, the traumatized Carmen, the hurt little girl Carmen, the little girl who was insecure because she was bullied about her looks growing up and had awkward tendencies and was different from everyone else and was bullied or embarrassed and told that no one needed to see or hear from her because of her uniqueness. And I am speaking about her in third person because I am no longer that little girl. And so in this hypnotherapy session or sessions, the anchor is the you that you have already become, or the higher version of yourself, whatever that highest version is, to say to that and go in your mind and go back to that small child and be your own rescue. So when it's you versus you, then this is where I love Dr. Eric Thomas's book that is now on the New York Times bestseller. Congratulations. You to rescue yourself so that you can show up and not just have self-actualization and realize the highest potential of yourself, but to actually live the highest potential of yourself. And so what happens, and what I'm noticing for myself, I always use myself as an example, as a template of what to and not to do, because as I learn, I want you to learn. So all the self-sabotage, what I'm noticing is that there is a pattern of major strides for myself and then pauses. Or some people refer to it as a shrinking violet syndrome. But there's something that pause causes, that causes the pause, and we'll call her Carmen Jones. And in the two traumatic events that have happened these last couple of weeks, those directly affected and brought up the memories and brought up the experiences that I did have as a child. And some of them, unbeknownst to me, were buried memories. So as a protective measure, in order to move on with life, that's how I was trained. I was trained by a lot of strong Black women. And I am going to rephrase that because there is no strength in hiding. There is no strength in being able to cover up your wounds, but not necessarily to heal the wounds. See, my family is really good at having beautiful band-aids. Yes, I said it. Beautiful band-aids. But when you peel it back, you'll see all kinds of pus and gangrene from things that have not been dealt with. And so because I know who I am, see, and that's the other thing, just when you rediscover yourself, when you know exactly who you are, and I know my assignment is to set captives free from people who are locked inside of themselves. It is not just me and the little Carmen Jones. It's not Carmen Jones versus Carmen Rozier. For a lot of people, it is you versus you. There's a version of yourself that is not serving yourself. And that person needs to be introduced to the highest version of yourself. And there's a conversation that needs to take place. And in my case, it is just a matter of saying, we are all right. I have to go back to myself and say, we good. We're going to make it through. But here's some things that I need you to know, that there's no power in this place. See, darkness gives power to pain. Darkness gives power to pain. So I invite all of my people to come into the light, because in the light, it kills the seeds of deception, of masking, of covering up, of lying to yourself and telling yourself that because the time went past, I'm over it. Time heals all wounds. Those are lies. And so being able to identify that and then put a stop to it by saying that Carmen Jones, being 8, 9, 10, or 11 years old, is no longer equipped to drive or be in the driver's seat, because that is a child. And I am an adult, full-grown woman with a lot of people who are accountable to me, and I am accountable to them, and that I am accountable for. I brought humans onto this planet. I procreated. So it's not even that I owe it to myself, I owe it to my family to continue to grow and not just have a realization of who I could be, but to become and be that person. So as I'm sitting here on this podcast with you, that is exactly what I'm doing now. So anyone that is in the sound of my voice, I hope that you are catching this. And then I'm going to recommend that if you have not already purchased You Owe You, then you owe it to yourself to purchase it, because Dr. Eric Thomas has removed all excuses, all of them, from not being the best version of yourself. Now, I have an event coming up. It is going to be a workshop. It is a free workshop. So now the details are unfolding for you. Believing in better. It doesn't matter what the situation, time, space that you are in, no matter how bad, dark, or dank it may look, sound, or feel, there is a better. There's always an opposite of any circumstance. So that goes for everything. If everything's going well, then just be ready for life to bring you the peaks and valleys, but there's always going to be a better. You have to believe in the better version of yourself. You have to believe in the better version that you can take yourself in life. There is a better everything available to you if you just tap into that. And so I'm inviting you to rediscover yourself with me by joining me at my event on October 22nd, 2022. I'm also inviting you to connect with me so that we can align on coaching or whatever it is that you may need to get to your next best. And I do offer coaching, I offer group training, and you can find that information on my website at www.carmenrosier.com. And then follow me on Instagram. Feel free to message me, and my Instagram handle is right here. But I'm going to close with this. I used to sing a song when I was little in church, and it was called "This Little Light of Mine. I'm going to let it shine. This little light of mine, I'm going to let it shine. This little light of mine, I'm going to let it shine. Let it shine. Let it shine. Let it shine. And so there is no power in my pain because I am a light, because of the light of God that is in me. And who the Son sets free is free indeed. There is liberation in the ministry I found in Jesus Christ. And this is not this ain't Bible study or church, but you know what? If you don't have hope, if you don't have a higher power that you're tapped into, study the ministry of Jesus. Because that light, I found that light when I was 5 years old. It has never left me. And it's literally how I have endured. And there is no darkness in the light. Light and dark cannot inhabit the same space at the same time. So turn the light on inside of yourself. Everyone has the light. As long as you have a heartbeat and a pulse, you have light. Let your light shine, because there is someone waiting for you to show up. Your life is not your own. Your life is to be a blessing to someone else. So with that being said, I am going to leave you until next week, and be blessed.